Now identifying the world where the SCP object 3D glasses has appeared, the Doraemon world. The voice from the screen declared it plainly. Our world. Nobita and Doraemon both yelped and froze. The scene on the screen switched, showing their familiar room down to the smallest detail. These two are Nobita and Doraemon. One's a kid and the other a raccoon? Tony Stark muttered in confusion. The ones talking to us were a child and a raccoon? What kind of prank is this? Barton added. Luffy squinted at the screen. Your raccoons can talk, huh? Chopper talks on our ship. Luffy, am I a raccoon to you? Chopper snapped. No, Luffy waved it off. On another feed, Moriboshi Dan stared in disbelief at the corpse of a Gudon. The chest had been blasted open. Gudon was dead. The killing blow had come from Gantras. After Moriboshi Dan activated Gantras, the robot had dispatched Gudon in a single strike. With that kind of destructive power, even Leo and Seven might be outclassed. Earth would be safer with such a machine, if only it could be reproduced. Moriboshi Dan had already ordered his people to study Gantras to see if they could build more. Back in the Doraemon world, Nobita and Doraemon were frantically searching their room, convinced the 3D glasses had appeared there. It's not here! Doraemon, where is that thing? Nobita cried. I don't know either, Doraemon replied. A scream cut through the air. Both of them ran to the window. Down on the street, a man was sprinting wildly, clutching at his clothes as they shredded and new wounds appeared on his body as if something invisible kept slashing him. Help! Save me! He shouted, shoving aside passers-by as if trying to escape some unseen attacker. The people he pushed didn't feel anything and stared back at him in confusion. That man, he's wearing glasses, but where are the 3D glasses? Someone shouted in the crowd. Doraemon scanned the doorstep and his eyes landed on a pair of 3D glasses lying there. They must have materialized and been picked up. Someone was wearing them. Nobita, let's go help him, Doraemon said. All right, take copter, Nobita shouted. Doraemon pulled 2 take-copters from his pocket and fitted them to their heads. Within seconds, the tiny rotors spun, and the 2 of them flew out the window, swooping down to grab the glasses and close in on the fleeing man. Onlookers gaped. A simple toy-like device could actually make people fly. Raccoon, what did you just pull out? How can it make you fly? Tony Stark demanded, incredulous. I'm not a raccoon, Doraemon snapped. I'm a cat-type robot from the 22nd century. I'm a cat. What? The 22nd century? Tony blurted. Everyone was stunned. First there was a flying gadget, then it came from the future. Fury squinted at the screen. You aren't joking, are you? Your buildings look like the 20th century. Doraemon waved a paw. I came from the 22nd century to the 20th century in a time machine. A time machine? Tony's eyes widened. Time travel, he and many others had dreamed of it. Doraemon was about to say more when he was distracted by the man on the street. I don't have time to explain, Doraemon said. We have to save him. Doraemon reached into his 4-dimensional pocket and pulled out a large mirror. Replication mirror. He used it to copy a pair of the 3D glasses. The 2 put the replicated glasses on. In an instant, the surroundings shifted. They were no longer on the busy street, but standing in a deserted, sun-blasted wasteland. Above them, the air swarmed with monstrous shapes, countless creatures attacking in clustered formations. Nobita's face went white. There are so many monsters. This is suicide, Natasha hissed. Barton couldn't help asking, how can you take things out of a mirror? Nobita answered, amazed. It's a replication mirror. It can duplicate anything. Fury leaned forward. Anything? No limits? Doraemon nodded. Yes, as long as something can be taken out of the mirror, it can be replicated, no matter how many or what kind. People can be copied too, but be careful. The replicated person might get trapped inside the mirror. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled heroes. A device that could replicate anything without clear limits was more than powerful. It was game-changing. Mass-producing food could end famine. Duplicating energy sources or water could solve crises. Creating weapons or weapons-grade tools could build entire armies. Even ageless beings like the Ancient One, Odin, and Diana felt unsettled. In the One Piece world at Marineford, Kizaru blinked at the implications. Then can't you replicate devil fruits? Multiple devil fruits of the same kind? Sengoku and Akainu went pale at the thought. If many people could wield the same Logia-type power, the balance of power in their world would collapse. Everyone knew only one of each devil fruit existed, but a replication device would upend that rule. In Asgard, Thor grabbed the main point straight away. If that mirror really works like that, you could copy many of my hammer or father's spear. Odin could barely contain himself. His spear was one of the strongest weapons in the 9 realms. If it could be replicated in numbers, an army armed with it would be unstoppable. He regretted for a moment not devoting more attention to technological development instead of magic. Tony paced, trying to reconcile the impossible. I still don't get it. How can your pocket hold such a huge mirror? Doraemon explained calmly. This is my 4-dimensional pocket. It contains a vast 4-dimensional space that can store anything. 4-dimensional? Naruto asked. What does that mean? Doraemon shrugged. If I simplify it, it creates a new space specifically for storing things. The Ancient One's eyes widened. Creating space, this is very advanced space magic. She understood the concept. High-level space magic did include techniques to open storage spaces, but Doraemon cut her off. It's not magic. It's technology. It's 22nd century tech. You wouldn't understand it even if I explained. Tony's chest tightened. He had always thought himself at the cutting edge of science, but the gadgets Doraemon had casually produced in less than a minute left him both shaken and exhilarated. So many possibilities flashed before him. What other tools do you have? Show me, he demanded, eager. Chapter 42, The Mouth That Makes Lies Come True, shocking the audience. Help! Help! The man could no longer run. A swarm of monsters, using some unknown power, was about to finish him off, even through the world's barrier. Stop! Doraemon and Nobita shot into the sky. They fished an air cannon and a stun gun from the pocket and fired at the creatures. The air cannon blew several beasts apart with a thunderous boom, and the stun gun knocked others into convulsions, buying time. They grabbed the wounded man and forced themselves upward, trying to escape the pack. The monsters howled at their sudden arrival. New intruders provoked their fury, and they lunged up with outstretched hands. None of them could fly, so they could only watch helplessly as Doraemon and Nobita climbed higher. Their roars grew more ferocious, full of killing intent. More monsters poured in from every direction until the desert seemed filled, a shifting ocean of flesh. They piled up like a living ladder, closing in. My goodness, how many are there? Jiraiya shouted. If we don't wipe them all out, they won't stop chasing, Sengoku warned. Tony Stark frowned. Their weapons aren't enough. There's got to be some advanced tech behind this. Doraemon, what do we do? Nobita cried. Don't panic, leave it to me, Doraemon said calmly. He rummaged in his pocket, pulled out a small toy that looked like a beaked mouth, and stuck it over his own mouth. We actually haven't been seen by these creatures. They won't chase us anymore, Doraemon stated with deadpan confidence. What he said contradicted everything they could see. Everyone on the screen turned to stare. Before anyone could react, the impossible happened. The monsters that had been clawing and shrieking at them suddenly fell back and shrugged off the intruders as if nothing had occurred. They ignored Doraemon and Nobita in the sky and began to disperse. Doraemon, is it over? Nobita asked, voice trembling. As long as we don't make noise and attract them, we'll be fine, Doraemon replied, glancing at the uncle in his arms. Fortunately, the man had already passed out. If he had started shouting again, things would have been different. Only after the last creature had drifted away did Doraemon and Nobita relax. They removed their 3D glasses and returned to reality. Viewers exploded with questions. What did you do? Why did they leave just because you said something? Fury demanded. Mordo, is this forgetting magic? You can do forgetting magic, someone blurted. This is incredible. Explain it now. Tony Stark barked. Doraemon held up the small device. This isn't forgetting magic. It's the truth come true mouth. If you wear this gadget, whatever you say, no matter how outlandish, becomes reality. You could even bring about the end of the world. His words fell like a bomb. The crowd went silent. No one laughed. At Kamartaj, the Ancient One stared in disbelief. Magic that rewrites reality was no trivial thing. Power over reality was the realm of the Reality Stone, the Phoenix Force, or chaos magic. And now a little beak-shaped gadget from the future supposedly did the same? It shook even her. Is this technology? Tony spluttered. It overturns causality. It does, Doraemon said, but it's tech from the 22nd century. Tony's eyes went wide. Technology that changes causality? Tell me how it's built. I don't know how it works, Doraemon replied. I didn't make it. Even if I did explain, you don't have the materials we have in the 20th century. Tony's disappointment was visible, like a child looking through a glass at a toy he will never touch. Naruto leaned forward, like eyes shining. Anything could come true. If I had this, I could become Hokage and make a world without war. Usopp licked his lips. All the lies I tell would come true. Piccolo frowned. Could you use it to kill very powerful enemies? Huh? Yes, Doraemon said. If we had this, we wouldn't have to worry about Saiyans, Son Gohan said. Sun Wukong shook his head. No, I'd rather win honorably. Me too, Piccolo agreed. Then why ask? Sun Wukong retorted. Vegeta sneered. Do you think I'm scared? I'll kill you before you can speak. This machine has one flaw, Doraemon said thoughtfully. It doesn't activate until the sentence is finished. Then it's simple, Natasha Romanoff said coolly. There are a million countermeasures. Speak faster. Fury looked covetously at the device. Mr. Doraemon, if possible, tell us the design principles. If S-Shield had this, it would solve every crisis. Bruce Wayne's voice came quietly. Can it resurrect the dead? Diana blinked. You're back. Why were you silent so long? I went after a criminal, Bruce said. Mr. Doraemon, can you answer me? Can it bring back people dead for a long time? No one has tried that, but it should be possible, Doraemon said. Bruce drew in a shuddering breath. The possibility that his parents, dead for years, could be brought back hit him like an electric shock, then settled into the painful realization that Doraemon and he weren't from the same universe. Even if such tech existed, it wasn't his to have. An electronic chime rang from the broadcast. Congratulations on successfully containing the 3D glasses. Rewards are now being distributed. The announcement continued. 1/3 of the gadgets in Doraemon's pocket have been upgraded to permanent items. Nobita has received a first-year magic course at Hogwarts, along with a basic magic wand. Chapter 43. The next collection, A Shy Ghost Who Can't See His Face. When the announcement of the reward came, several textbooks suddenly appeared above Nobita and crashed down on him, knocking him to the ground. Nobita! Doraemon immediately flew down, helped Nobita up, and quickly dug into his medicine box to treat him and the elderly man nearby. My gadgets! After returning the medicine box, Doraemon noticed that some of his gadgets had changed. He pulled a few out to examine them. Some of them really became permanent gadgets. That's great! Doraemon was so happy he almost cried. At that moment, the screen's voice kept explaining. Hogwarts is a magic school in a certain magic world, educating students with magical aptitude. Hogwarts' curriculum is divided from first year to sixth year. What Nobita has obtained is the basic first-year curriculum. Dr. Strange's eyes widened. What? Other universes have magic schools too, and even graded systems like elementary school? This is too advanced. Mordo smirked. Ahem. Strange, are you implying our methods at Camartage are flawed? Strange bristled. How should I put it? Just a little disorganized. He stopped mid-complaint when he noticed the Ancient One standing right beside him. His expression fell instantly. It seems Mr. Strange has many opinions about our teaching methods. Perhaps he needs more cultivation, the Ancient One said with a mischievous smile that made Strange shiver. Wong ignored their bickering and turned to Nobita and the others. As a scholar, he was very curious about the magic book. Nobita, what does the spell book say? How do you cast spells? Nobita opened the book and answered, It covers a lot. Spells, transfiguration, defense against the dark arts, potion making, herbology, and history of magic. It says casting spells is basically reciting an incantation and flicking a wand. Wong looked surprised. What? It's that simple? Does Hogwarts' method of practicing magic not require any cost or sacrifice? Nobita read from the introduction. It says you just need to concentrate and study diligently, that's all. Wong sighed enviously. Then I truly envy you, no great price to pay. Tony Stark cut in. Wait, so you're mages too? You seemed to know a lot about magic earlier. The Ancient One nodded. Yes, we are mages, and we have always protected this world. Nick Fury interjected briskly. Hold on, we at S-Shield are the ones who protect the world, okay? Don't steal our credit. Mordo sneered. Foolish, with your power you could not defend this world. If not for the Ancient One, demon gods from other dimensions would have destroyed it long ago. Demon gods, Fury snapped. What are you talking about? The Ancient One's expression turned serious. Some things are better left unknown. Tony, never one for mystique, pressed playfully. If you've got the guts, give us an address. Let's see if you're just all mystery. Ancient One only chuckled. Nick Fury's eyes flashed at Tony's provocation, hoping for a reveal, but the Ancient One and his companions remained tight-lipped. Fury turned to Hill. Hill, I asked you to dig into these names. What did you find? Hill flipped through thick files. I found them, but it's not very helpful. Loki, Odin, and Thor are names from mythology. Ancient One, Mordo, and Wong don't show up anywhere. Strange was recorded as a brilliant surgeon, but he's been missing for a long time. Fury frowned, realizing how little he actually knew about his own world. Tony waved a hand. I'm too lazy to care about that now. Hey Doraemon, I still have questions. What did you mean when you said some of your gadgets became permanent? Doraemon explained. Most of my gadgets are disposable because they're very cheap. Permanent gadgets are extremely expensive. Ordinary people can't afford them. Tony's interest sharpened. So you can buy your gadgets? Even things like a lie detector? Doraemon nodded. Yes, in future department stores, those kinds of gadgets are everywhere. Anyone with money can buy them. Both Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne drew in sharp breaths. The idea that such advanced devices could be purchased by anyone, even by the millions of people with money, made their own fortunes suddenly feel less impressive. Tsunade spoke up, alarmed. Wait, if such powerful items are widely available, wouldn't that cause chaos? Doraemon shook his head. No, in the future there are strict management measures to prevent widespread misuse of gadgets. That statement stunned everyone. If even gadgets capable of altering facts and causality can be regulated, the technological level of Doraemon's world was terrifying. Bruce Wayne folded his hands, thoughtful. You still haven't explained why you came from the 22nd century to the 20th. I get the feeling you had a purpose. Doraemon's face grew serious. I do. I came to change the fate of my friend Nobita. You cannot imagine how useless he becomes as an adult. He failed at business and took on high-interest loans that compounded until his descendants in the 22nd century couldn't repay them. His descendants are my bosses, so I was sent back to train him into a competent adult and change his family's fate. Nobita blushed and protested. Doraemon, that's really too much. Doraemon shrugged. It's the truth. Silence settled over the group. Everyone had pictured a time traveler's mission as something grand, but this one was heartbreakingly mundane. Bruce shook his head in disbelief. Interest compounding so badly it can't be repaid 2 centuries later. How does someone accumulate that much debt? Jiraiya, listening from the Naruto contingent, looked at Tsunade. Tsunade, this is your chance to quit gambling. Otherwise, you might end up like Nobita. Tsunade snapped back indignantly. Idiot! It's not that bad, and I don't even pay my debts, all right? The Ancient One, watching the exchange, raised a new point. However, I must ask, won't changing someone's fate in the past affect the world line? Chapter 44. Looking forward to the future of Doraemon's world. The Ancient One frowned in genuine confusion at the idea of Doraemon traveling back in time and changing people's destinies. She herself was adept at using the Time Stone. She knew better than anyone the consequences of tampering with time. Casual alterations could produce catastrophic ripple effects. Doraemon, however, seemed untroubled. No, Doraemon said calmly. Nobita is just an ordinary person. Whether his future changes or not won't significantly impact the world line. If it were something that truly altered the future on a large scale, the Time Patrol would have arrested me long ago. Fury's eyes widened. You even have a police force specifically for time travel? Of course, Doraemon replied. In the future, plenty of criminals jump between timelines trying to change the future for profit. Organizations like the Time Patrol are necessary to keep the world line stable. Tony Stark listened with rapt attention. He had thought his own technological achievements represented the peak of science, but Doraemon's world overturned that belief. I never imagined technology could develop like that, he murmured. It's incredible. I would love to live in your century. A flight attendant approached then, sleek and efficient. Sir, we've arrived at our destination. Tony rose immediately, energized by the idea. Nearby, the Ancient One, unusually animated, waved her fan faster. So if an action doesn't have a significant impact, the time authorities don't punish it, their time laws are fascinating. In Asgard, Thor's expression was a mix of bemusement and indignation as he replayed in his head the image of Doraemon's truth-come-true mouth. If he had faced such a device, he muttered, he would have been toyed with endlessly. I hate that kind of power, he said. It doesn't feel honorable. A warrior should fight fair and square. Loki snorted softly. A device like that would be a perfect tool for a god of mischief, a way to bend reality without raising a sword. He wanted it badly. Then an explosion ripped through part of the palace, drawing every gaze. Enemy attack! We're under assault! A guard shouted. Odin roared, fury burning in his eyes. How dare anyone attack Asgard? They would pay. Across realities in the DC universe, Bruce Wayne's mind wandered toward the same impossible promise. The dark alley where his parents died remained an unhealed wound. If he could truly bring them back, his fingers tightened on the edge of a table. Truth come true mouth, he breathed. If only I could study it. If only. He glanced at a nearby mirror. On the other side, in the mirror world, hostages cowered under a group of robbers led by his old nemesis, Bennett. Bruce, empowered by the Night Knight, stood ready in that reflected realm. A creature called the Dark Wingbat circled, letting out a strange, high-pitched cry. No, I can't let you just eat them, Bruce told the creature. He understood the Dark Wingbat's hunger. Being consumed by a monster might seem almost merciful compared to the human violence he fought, but he feared crossing the line into killing. If he allowed such acts, it could become an excuse, a slippery slope to becoming what he hated. The Dark Wingbat complained with a chittering sound, its blood-red eyes flashing. Bruce, unflinching, spoke with the calm authority of its master. Find something else. Hold back. Reluctantly, the creature agreed. Bruce leaped through the mirror and struck at the criminals. Empowered by the Night Knight and aided by the Dark Wingbat, he became an unstoppable force. Bennett and his crew fell quickly. From that night forward, another chapter was added to the legend of Batman, a figure in black cloak and medieval-style armor, shadowed by a giant bat, casting a deeper fear over Gotham. In the Hidden Leaf, Naruto sat staring at a screen, thoughts drifting. Jiraiya nudged him. What's wrong? Time to go. Naruto snapped out of it. Nothing, he lied, trying to hide what he had been thinking. Tsunade, returning to lead the village, hovered nearby and lowered her voice. He's probably thinking about using that truth-come-true mouth to bring his parents back. The words hung heavy in the air. Jiraiya's expression froze for a moment, then softened. He had been a pervert and a wandering sage, but he had also known loss. If I had that kind of thing, he began, and Tsunade's eyes narrowed, expecting mischief. If it were me, Jiraiya added quickly with a lecherous grin, I'd make pretty girls drink with me for free. Tsunade lunged as if to strike, then pulled back. I'm kidding, Jiraiya coughed, sobering quickly. Ahem, if it were me for real, I'd wish for a world without war. He looked to the sky with a rare sadness. Before long, Naruto's shout broke through, calling them back to the village. They smiled at him, then followed. On the Thousand Sunny, the Straw Hats listened as Usopp gaped at the possibility. This tool is amazing. Whatever you say comes true. Imagine, everyone's dreams could come true. Idiot, Zoro grumbled. If dreams were that easy, what would living for them mean? Dreams matter because you work to reach them, he added in his usual blunt way. Luffy just grinned, always ready for an adventure. Usopp shrugged, accustomed to their differences, and the conversation drifted into more familiar, hopeful banter. Across worlds, in myriad ways, the idea of a device that could make wishes reality was sending ripples through minds already full of loss and longing. Some saw danger, others opportunity, but most of those who learned of the truth-come-true mouth found themselves forced to confront what they would sacrifice and what they would risk to change the past or shape the future. Chapter 45, the next collection, A Shy Ghost Who Can't See People, Marineford. Akainu stared at the screen, his expression burning. If we had a device that could make lies come true, there'd be no more pirates in this world. Right, Fleet Admiral? He blurted, excitement making his voice crack. Sengoku listened, nodding slowly, lost in thought. Merely eliminating pirates isn't enough, he murmured. With something like this, we might even stand up to the celestial dragons. He stopped himself. The thought was too dangerous to voice aloud. Dragon Ball World. Son Gohan watched the broadcast with longing in his eyes. What an incredible piece of technology. If we had it, we wouldn't have to fear the Saiyans, he said, almost reverent. Piccolo scowled and turned away. The idea of such a powerful tool unsettled him. It felt like a threat. Leo World. When Feng Yuan learned of the device's properties, his excitement was hard to contain. If it existed, even the dead might be brought back. His hometown could return. Captain, do you think we could get our hands on something like that? He asked eagerly, even though he knew the idea was far-fetched. Moroboshi Dan shook his head immediately, eyes wide. No, you can't create a device that rewrites causality. Not even the Land of Light could do that. Feng Yuan clung to one last hope. He remembered Dan saying that if they pooled all the Land of Light's power, they might travel to other universes. But if we gathered enough power, couldn't we reach Doraemon's universe? He pressed. Feng Yuan, Dan snapped, already understanding where his thoughts were heading. You can't recklessly jump between universes. You could get lost and never be able to return. The rebuke sobered Feng Yuan. He realized they had more immediate problems. For now, we have to handle what's in front of us. Earth is still very dangerous. We need to focus our energy here, Dan said, and Feng Yuan reluctantly nodded, putting the childish fantasy away. Doraemon World. Nobita hovered beside the device, worried. Doraemon, what are we going to do with those 3D glasses? Uncle is cured and his memory wiped, but the glasses... Nobody should ever put them on, Doraemon said. We'll seal them away and never let anyone take them out. He produced a specially made safe, placed the 3D glasses inside, and set the combination. This safe is reinforced. Not even a missile could open it, and it won't budge without the password. Nobita finally breathed easier. He picked up the strange book lying on the ground, eyes flicking over the pages. Is this magic? He wondered aloud, imagining spells to finish his homework and impress Shizuka. A smile spread over his face as he pictured the future. Brooklyn, Marvel World. Xie Yun read the reward notice that appeared after containing the 3D glasses. Reward: summon monsters from the world to which the 3D glasses were connected for assistance. They can be fully controlled. No upper limit on summons. A sliver of information slipped into his mind with that message. Bring one out for me to see, he said. Space warped beside him, and a monster stepped through, one of those creatures only visible through the 3D glasses. It was grotesque and alien. Xie Yun felt a chill. The creature should have attacked anyone who could see it, yet when he reached out, it showed no hostility, almost as if it couldn't perceive him. Go back, he said, and it vanished. The prediction video resumed its cold narration, now forecasting the next SCP object. A new image appeared, a humanoid, skin like washed-out ash, naked and frail, sitting with both hands covering its face as if in grief. The Containment Society's voiceover continued. This object left the deepest mark on our records and caused some of our greatest headaches. Its code name is Shy Guy. It is called that because it is extraordinarily reclusive. If anyone sees its face, even in a photograph, the creature will enter an uncontrollable rage and kill anyone who has seen it. The video cut to footage from an unnamed town. The Shy Guy sat on a curb, hunched and covering its face. Passers-by slowed, curious. Are you okay? A concerned onlooker asked. Hey, move it! You're blocking the way, some others shouted. A pack of brash youths kicked the figure to the ground. One of them reached down, grinning, and yanked the creature's hands away to see its face. "Ah, you're disgusting!" they jeered. At that, the Shy Guy's muffled wail erupted into a howl of pure terror and fury. It struck out with impossible speed, one claw piercing a boy's chest. Before the others could react, it lashed out again and again, turning them into mangled, bloody wreckage. The stunned crowd froze, eyes wide, unable to process the sudden carnage. In that instant, the Shy Guy's face had been exposed to dozens of people. It shrieked as if in pain and sprinted toward the nearest witness, claws flashing, leaving slaughter in its wake. "Help!" someone screamed. "Murderer!" People scattered, but those who tried to intervene were no match. They were killed in seconds. The Shy Guy pursued anyone who had seen its face, whether they fled into cars, hid in houses, or tried to barricade themselves. It tore apart doors, ripped open vehicles, and dragged victims into the open. Homes and vehicles were no refuge. it methodically hunted down every eye that had glimpsed it. In minutes, an ordinary town was transformed into a scene of utter horror, a sure hell of relentless killing. Shy Guy's killing speed was horrendous. In less than half an hour, the entire street and the houses along it were littered with corpses. But that was only the beginning. Far more people had seen him. Just as Shy Guy left the street, the police finally dared to engage, blasting at him with rifles, rocket launchers, and grenades. None of it mattered. Their most powerful weapons couldn't even ruffle his fur. The attacks only provoked him. He accelerated and plunged into the crowd of officers, ripping through them in a merciless frenzy. Corpses fell everywhere. Severed limbs flew through the air. No matter how many police arrived or how much firepower they brought, they couldn't slow him. The more that came, the more died. Without the police to protect them, the townspeople were helpless. 3 hours later, the small town had become a graveyard. Bodies were everywhere. That, however, was not the end, only the start of something far worse. Someone had filmed Shy Guy's slaughter and uploaded the footage. The video spread like wildfire. Millions watched, and television stations promoted it. Once a face was seen by even a single viewer, Shy Guy could sense it. He killed anyone who had seen him, whether they had glimpsed a photograph from a distance, a drawing, or even a pixelated image. No hiding helped, no matter how far away. Sensing that tens of millions had seen him, Shy Guy screamed to the sky and vanished from the spot. Buildings began to collapse in a chain reaction. The destruction was caused by his speed. The farther the target, the faster he ran. His velocity climbed past dozens of times the speed of sound, then kept rising, toward hundreds of times the speed of sound. At that velocity, the shockwaves he created were enough to crush living things without direct contact. No known material on Earth could withstand him. He careened through towns and cities, smashing through buildings and trampling everything in his path as he sought the people who had seen his face. The body count became impossible to calculate. From above, the country would have looked like a tapestry of blood and corpses. Victims could not have imagined that a single glance at his image would doom them. When the National High Command learned of the phenomenon, they mobilized the military. Tanks, aircraft, artillery, missiles. Every weapon was thrown at him. In broadcast footage, smoke and flames filled the sky. Tanks and jets hammered a single location with everything they had. After the bombardment, soldiers peered into the crater, hoping the nightmare was over. Slowly, impossibly, a skeleton staggered out. Flesh and skin began knitting themselves back onto the bones, reforming Shy Guy. His regenerative ability was horrifying. Even reduced to bone, he reassembled himself. Speed, regeneration, and devastating kinetic force combined to make him nearly invincible. "Keep firing! Don't stop!" soldiers yelled, stunned and frantic. Their barrage only delayed him. It didn't stop the slaughter. After the second day, the country had been turned into purgatory. 99% of the population annihilated. Only when nearly everyone who could see him was dead did Shy Guy pause. He covered his face and stood there sorrowfully, and the country was wiped off the map. Afterward, the Containment Society stepped forward. Faced with a monster like this, they had no way to fight it directly. They could only control the aftermath. They shut down transmission channels and agreed that no image of Shy Guy could ever be broadcast. To discover his limits, they even staged an experiment. They had someone view his photograph from space. The result was stranger and more terrifying than anyone expected. Shy Guy ran into space, found the person, tore apart a hardened spacecraft, and killed the person inside. After that, all experiments were halted, and every transmission of his image was forbidden. If anyone saw Shy Guy, that person had to be dealt with before a worse contagion spread. In Doraemon World, the footage had reached an audience. Nobita screamed, "Doraemon, we saw this monster. Will it come here?" he wailed, terrified. A calm announcer on the monitor reassured viewers, "People watching this screen can rest assured this broadcast will not trigger Shy Guy's anomalous effects." That statement eased some tension, but it wasn't enough to make everyone feel safe. Nobita remained shaken, and Doraemon was deeply worried. The scene had alarmed an international audience of heroes and legends. Fury paced. "What is this thing? It can wipe out a whole country in a day." Bruce Wayne was grim. "It's worse than that. If images keep spreading, the whole world could be dragged into hell. Tony Stark's browed. With modern networks, pictures reach every corner of the globe in seconds. With a speed that can exceed Mach by 100 times and a body that won't die, this thing could wipe out a planet. Moroboshi Dan added, if it can find people, no matter how far away, and even run into space, doesn't that mean it could pursue across different planets? Thor snorted. Are you saying it could destroy the universe? Vegeta scoffed. Don't flatter it. There are beings far stronger than humans in the universe. Just because Earth can't stop it doesn't mean everyone can't. This toy scares me not. Diana's voice was cool. I'm not frightened of cannons or missiles. If I encountered such a creature, I might have a way to defeat it. Bruce Wayne shot back. You're talking big. Who are you exactly? Diana gave a smile without answering. Some things are a woman's secret. Thor laughed. If that thing ever ran to Asgard, I'll make it regret it. The online reaction split. Some commenters were terrified. Others dismissed Shy Guy as beyond Earth's means. Fury read the responses and thought of Carol Danvers, an existence on par with the threat, someone Earth had who could stand against things no conventional force could handle. He kept hitting his pager, urgently trying to reach her. If Shy Guy ever showed up on their Earth, Fury believed only Carol might be able to stop it. Chapter 47, Shy Ghost appears in the Dragon Ball universe. What did that voice mean by deal with that person first? Does it mean that when we encounter that thing, we have to eliminate everyone who sees it? What? That's too much. They're the victims. Why would we kill them? Do you have another way to stop it? If there's no way to destroy this creature, then that's the only option. Are you kidding? I'll never agree to that. Sengoku. Kid, I understand how you feel, but sometimes reality forces us into ugly compromises. In the Naruto world, Naruto stared at the screen, unwilling. Is that the only way? There has to be another solution. Jiraiya reached over and ruffled his hair, trying to calm him. Don't be so tense. Remember, we've grown a lot stronger. I have the power of the Sage of Six Paths. If we run into something like this, we'll try every possible way to fight it. That's right. Naruto's eyes brightened. I can use the Nine Tails now. I refuse to believe that thing is stronger than Kurama. Jiraiya sighed in relief to see Naruto back to his old fire, though worry lingered on his face. He couldn't shake the feeling that a monster like the Shy creature would be difficult to handle, even with Six Paths power. Now, let's predict which universe the Shy thing will appear in. Everyone sharpened their attention, anxious about where it might show up. In the pirate world, Marineford, Kizaru asked, concerned, what do we do if it appears here? Sengoku wiped sweat from his brow. Cover your eyes and fight using observation haki. Kill it with everything you've got. If that fails, prepare for the worst. On the Thousand Sunny, Usopp and Chopper screamed and jumped up. Ah! Don't let it come to our world. They were understandably terrified. The thing sounded genuinely horrifying. In Leo World, Feng Yuan took a deep breath. If the Shy thing appeared there, he'd immediately transform into Leo, take the creature away so no one else would see it, and then destroy it with the L-77 ray. He refused to believe the L-77 ray, which could obliterate planets at full power, wouldn't finish it. If necessary, he'd add Kaioken. In the Doraemon world, Nobita bolted upright. Doraemon, what if that thing comes here? Don't worry, Doraemon said confidently. I have the truth-come-true mouth gadget. I can make it so no one actually saw it, and if that doesn't work, I have other tools. Nobita exhaled in relief, then watched Doraemon dig around his pocket. What are you doing? Organizing my gadgets so I don't lose anything, Doraemon replied nonchalantly. Nobita's face went pale again. At Kamartaj in the Marvel Universe, Dr. Strange asked the Ancient One, Master, what should we do if that monster appears? It's simple. As soon as it appears, before it can harm anyone, I can imprison it in another dimension. If it's already been noticed, I can erase the memory, the Ancient One said calmly. She'd already thought of a few possible fixes, though they'd have to be tested. Strange relaxed. This was the Sorcerer Supreme, after all. At S-Ace Yield, Fury was calling tech teams to monitor all networks. Listen up. If photos of that creature show up online, they must be deleted, even if it means hacking into other people's systems. The agents exchanged puzzled looks. How could you delete every image? There are endless monster pictures online. My God, your orders are vague and illogical. Aren't you worried people will get hunted down if they see it? Tony Stark asked, walking in with a smirk. Hey, how did you get in? Didn't I tell you to wait in the reception? Fury snapped. It's easy. Give your people a few autographs. Take a photo, hand out VIP cards to the guest house. That's all it takes, Tony said, waving off Coulson and the agents, who awkwardly moved aside. I've already had Jarvis monitor all networks. He's an Aya. Nothing can harm him. Leave it to me, Tony added, patting Fury on the shoulder. What if someone sees it up close? Fury asked. Actually, Tony gestured downstairs. Don't we have a statue that snaps people's necks if they look away? You mean that statue? Fury said, understanding. Worth a try. Tony's curiosity flickered at the thought of two extremes, something that kills if you look at it and something that kills if you look away. He found the scenario oddly fascinating. In the DC world, Batman had already rounded up Bane and his crew and handed them over to Commissioner Gordon. The criminals were babbling about Batman's terrifying image, about him emerging from mirrors, about his inhuman presence. Gordon shook his head and herded them into the car. On a rooftop, Batman watched the screen and thought through options. The safest move is to trap it in the mirror world, he mused. I don't believe it can escape that realm. He hoped he would never have to use that method. Then the announcement came. The universe where the shy thing would appear was the Dragon Ball universe. They were told that seeing the creature through the monitor would have no effect. The screen switched immediately to a bustling city in the Dragon Ball world. Piccolo, Sun Wukong, and Son Gohan's faces went stone pale. Gohan, let's go! Piccolo launched himself into the sky. Gohan followed at once. In the city below, a few ordinary people had already noticed the shy creature. It stood quietly. No matter how they called, it didn't react or pull its hands away from its face. Hey, what are you doing? Don't block the road, an impatient man barked as he approached. Growing irritated, he kicked the thing. It toppled over, and its face was exposed. Piccolo and Sun Wukong's expressions turned even grimmer. Ah! As the shy creature screamed, chaos erupted. In an instant, a ruthless slaughter spread through the city. Chapter 48, Piccolo vs. Shy Guy. Help! Murderer! Don't come any closer! Bang, bang, bang! In this strange city, Shy Guy was on a rampage. Anyone who saw its face was killed. Bodies were torn into pieces and scattered through the streets, which were now stained red with blood. What kind of monster was this? In a side alley, a man filmed Shy Guy's rampage on his phone, already picturing the shock it would cause online and the fame it would bring. He hurried to upload the footage. Then, with a single crack, his phone exploded, covering his face in black ash. Fool, someone muttered. I can't let you make this worse. Piccolo and Son Gohan descended from the sky, hovering above the carnage. Piccolo moved, and every nearby phone, camera, and recording device suddenly shorted and burst, rendered useless. The live stream died. The comment thread lit up with reactions from people across different worlds. Naruto, is that a human? Why is he flying? He's Piccolo. Very strong. He flies by controlling his ki like a sky dance. Fly by ki? That's defying gravity. If your ki is strong enough, you can. Big deal. I can levitate without ki. If I turn into Leo, I can too. Tony Stark fell silent. Too many things outside his experience were appearing. Better to say nothing. In the Naruto world, Naruto perverted hermit, can we use chakra to fly? Some ninjutsu can. Yes, teach me. Teach me. Jiraiya nearly refused, then thought training Naruto to control the Nine-Tails' power might be useful. Naruto immediately celebrated. At Marineford, Kizaru, if Haki could be used to fly, we could ditch the moonwalk. Sengoku, worth researching. Nick Fury, why does he look like a Skrull? Are we dealing with aliens? Piccolo, Skrulls? I don't know any Skrulls. Vegeta, watching with amusement. Namekian, obviously. No wonder Raditz didn't last. Piccolo snapped. What did you say? Vegeta shrugged. Namekians are overrated. Let's see how tough you really are. Piccolo, thanks for giving away where I'm from. Don't worry. Finish this thing, then you're next. So Piccolo's an alien? No wonder he felt different. Are you kidding? He's not from Earth? We have many races on Earth, people who look like animals. As if to prove him right, a tiger in clothes ran across someone's screen, swearing and fleeing. Viewers blinked at the bizarre diversity. Ancient One, The Dragon Ball world's Earth really is full of different species. Sun Wukong. Hey, isn't that Gohan? He looks stronger than last time. Dad, are you coming back soon? Soon. Snake Way is long. Strange. Where are you that you have to run to Earth? The other world. Sun Wukong's rambling left many viewers puzzled. Meanwhile, Piccolo ignored the chatter and flew straight at the now sitting Shy Guy. It had killed the last person who'd seen its face and was curled on the ground, sobbing. Die! Piccolo kicked it hard. The blow sent Shy Guy crashing through several buildings. The creature wasn't finished. It roared, launched itself back at Piccolo, and for a split second their eyes met. Piccolo had seen its face. Another scream joined the kill count. Shy Guy charged, claws out. Piccolo blocked the first swing with an arm, then snapped a punch at its jaw, bone-cracking, hard. He frowned. He'd broken countless things on Earth, but this creature's bones felt strange. Piccolo followed with a more powerful kick to its chest, sending it flying even farther. After spinning twice and slamming into the air, Shy Guy righted itself and came at him faster than before, whipping up a fierce wind. Piccolo's right arm swelled with gathered ki, and he unleashed a palm strike, an explosive impact that engulfed the creature. The blast leveled the buildings behind them. When the dust settled, the ground had split open, a gaping fissure torn across the street. Shy Guy was gone. Piccolo didn't assume victory. He could still sense the creature's ki. He brought his hands together and began compressing a massive amount of energy between his palms. Chapter 49. Terrible Shy Guy. Piccolo fights back with all his strength. Ha! Piccolo tightened his grip as he concentrated ki between his palms. This was his most devastating technique, the special beam cannon. Ha! At that moment, Shy Guy reappeared in Piccolo's line of sight. It was riddled with wounds, but the injuries were already knitting together with alarming speed. It still held its clawed posture, as if ready to grab someone, and looked utterly ferocious. In an instant, Shy Guy had lunged in front of Piccolo, poised to pounce. Regret coming to this world, Piccolo roared, and the special beam cannon fired. The beam struck Shy Guy in the chest, blasting it far away. An enormous explosion followed. Boom, boom, boom. The blast was cataclysmic, big enough to engulf an entire city. The shockwave tore through the clouds. The sheer power was beyond imagining. If Piccolo hadn't aimed the attack so that it detonated away from the city, countless people would have been caught in the blast. Witnesses from other worlds stared, stunned. Amazing! Piccolo, you're even stronger, Sun Wukong exclaimed. Thought I'd been slacking off all year? Piccolo replied. Sengoku rubbed his face in disbelief. How can it be this powerful? Jiraiya could only stare. My goodness. Across the multiverse, reactions poured in. The Straw Hat Pirates in the One Piece world gaped. Ace's Fire Fist had seemed devastating, but Piccolo's special beam cannon dwarfed it. At Marineford, Sengoku glared at Akainu. Can you produce this kind of power? Akainu shook his head quickly. I don't think so. Even if I turned into magma in that blast, I wouldn't come out unscathed. Sweat trickled down his brow. Only the 4 emperors and Garp could possibly match something like that. In the Naruto world, Jiraiya stared at the devastation and swallowed. What terrifying power is that? He muttered. Not even his sage techniques could achieve such destruction. Only the Ninetales' tailed beast bomb might compare. Tsunade nodded grimly. We're lucky we don't have a creature like that here. Back in the Dragon Ball world, Piccolo flew toward the smoking crater and scanned the area with his senses. I used most of my energy. It should be over, he thought. Then his face changed. A terrifying surge of ki slammed into him. It was Shy Guy's energy, but amplified many times over. A violent storm whipped across the battlefield, tearing buildings from their foundations. At the center, Shy Guy surged forward, not whole, but a frantic pile of bones hurtling at supersonic speed. By the time it smashed into Piccolo, muscle and flesh had already regrown. How is this possible? Piccolo gritted through a snarl. The creature's regenerative vitality outmatched anything he had seen. Piccolo himself regenerated rapidly, but he could not have survived a special beam cannon at such odds. Yet this thing had. Shy Guy paid no heed to anything but bloodlust. It went berserk, claws lashing wildly at Piccolo. Boom, boom, boom. A single strike slammed Piccolo into the ground, carving a deep, craterous tunnel. For a moment, it seemed uncertain whether he could fight on. As Shy Guy prepared to leap into the hole, Piccolo burst through the earth and shot out, shaken but alive. The claw that had almost killed him closed again on empty air. Seeing that Piccolo still stood, Shy Guy pursued, its claws moving so fast they left blurred after images. It enveloped Piccolo, trying to shred him. Forced onto the defensive, Piccolo retreated while parrying blow after blow. Even when he took to the air, Shy Guy clung like a shadow. Fortunately, its strength wasn't as overwhelming as before, and Piccolo could withstand it for now. But its attack speed kept increasing, and its style was chaotic and unpredictable. Keeping pace became nearly impossible. "Damn thing! I won't let you beat me!" Piccolo roared and stopped defending. He darted through Shy Guy's flurry, counterattacking with fists, kicks, elbows, and knees. He targeted any area that looked vital. Each blow was strong enough to tear Shy Guy's newly formed muscles apart, but the wounds sealed instantly. Shy Guy's stamina seemed endless, while Piccolo's injuries accumulated. His own regeneration cost energy, and the fight was draining him. The gap in endurance widened until Piccolo was the one on the ropes, bleeding and weakening. "Uncle Piccolo?" Son Gohan cried, alarmed. He shot forward and headbutted Shy Guy away. Shy Guy snapped in annoyance and slapped Gohan aside like an insect. Still, the interruption gave Piccolo a breather. He flipped and drove both feet into Shy Guy's chest, sending it skyward, and surged after it. "I think I see how your destructive power works," Piccolo panted as he fought. "The farther you're sent, the more your speed and strength increase. If I keep you close, I can control how much you grow." He realized the key. Distance amplified Shy Guy's power. Keeping it at point-blank range limited that effect. Screaming, Piccolo flew beneath the airborne Shy Guy, locked his hands together, and thrust upward, hammering the creature under the jaw and flinging it higher. He followed up immediately, hovering in front of it, palms out. Then he unleashed a barrage of ki blasts. Yah! Boom, 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 boom. Hundreds of concentrated ki bolts leapt from Piccolo's hands and struck Shy Guy. Each blast packed power approaching that of a special beam cannon. Piccolo compressed their explosive force with sheer mental focus, containing the damage so the shockwaves wouldn't spread outward and devastate the surrounding city. He kept firing until his reserves were nearly gone, then gathered the last scrap of ki into a single special beam cannon and hurled it into the center of the trapped, detonating storm. Boom, boom, boom. The resulting explosion dwarfed the first, more terrifying, brighter, the shockwaves sweeping in a tornado-like swirl. The flash outshone the sun for a heartbeat, bathing the battlefield in searing light. If Piccolo hadn't lofted the fight into the air before finishing his attack, that blast would have leveled everything around the city. As the light faded and the air settled, Piccolo dropped lower, exhausted, every muscle trembling. He had gambled everything on keeping Shy Guy close, and for now, that gamble had held. Chapter 50. Piccolo is helpless, and Kame Senryu comes to his aid. The explosion on the screen left many spectators frozen. Its terrifying power defied imagination. At Marineford, Sengoku, Akainu, and Kizaru wore particularly grave expressions. The magnitude of that blast made their skin crawl. Had any of them been hit by it, death would have been certain. Even the four emperors would not have come out unscathed. How can someone from the Dragon Ball universe be this terrifying? No, he doesn't even seem human. Kizaru breathed, trying to suppress his unease. Record Piccolo's energy control techniques and see if we can replicate or learn from them. Sengoku ordered without hesitation. This was not the time for panic. It was a chance to study powerful techniques from other universes. In the Naruto world, Naruto, Shizune, Jiraiya, and Tsunade were equally unsettled. Piccolo's destructive power was beyond anything they had expected. Even the Ninetales would probably be badly hurt by that, Jiraiya muttered. If anyone entered Sage of Six Paths mode, could they withstand Piccolo's full power? Jiraiya couldn't imagine it. Back on the battlefield, Sun Wukong praised, "Incredible, Piccolo. I didn't expect that to be your true strength." "Naturally," Piccolo replied without pride. Vegeta laughed derisively. "Ha ha, this is rich. Is that supposed to be your full power? If that's it, you're nothing to me." Piccolo snapped. "What did you say?" "I'm not exaggerating. At that level, you couldn't even beat Nappa. Never mind me," Vegeta said. Everyone around them drew a sharp breath. If Piccolo could unleash that kind of destruction and Vegeta still dismissed him, then Vegeta himself had to be on another level entirely. Whether he was boasting or not, Piccolo bristled, and then his face suddenly went ashen. His pupils dilated, his eyes shook, and he turned his head stiffly to the sky. "How is this possible? How can it still have ki?" he whispered. Son Gohan showed the same fear. The shadow of something was tearing through the smoke and rushing toward the ground, each movement stirring violent gusts and vibrating the surrounding air. It could only be one thing: the Shy Guy. The Shy Guy roared. Piccolo's earlier attack had shredded its muscles to a pulp. Now it was only a pile of bones. But within moments, flesh sprouted over the bones, and the creature was whole again. It slammed in front of Piccolo and swiped a claw. Boom! The blow was devastating. It sent Piccolo hurtling through the air, smashing through buildings before he hit the ground. "Uncle Piccolo!" Son Gohan sprinted to his side. A huge chunk of flesh had been torn from Piccolo's chest. He was clearly in agonizing pain. What kind of monster is this? Piccolo swallowed his pain and struggled to stand, watching the Shy Guy bear down on him. He was exhausted. Where could he find the strength to continue? If the Saiyans weren't here soon, he might die at the hands of this thing. He cursed himself for provoking it. If he had known it couldn't be killed, he would have left it alone and captured it quietly while it was still immobilized. But it was too late for regrets. On Kami's lookout, Kami, who looked like Piccolo, watched in disbelief. What kind of terrifying thing is that? Even Piccolo can't handle it. Why did it suddenly appear? His whole body trembled. He wanted to get a glimpse of it, but remembered Piccolo's warning: do not look at its face, or it will hunt you down. The warning kept him from looking directly. Seeing the Shy Guy's power, Kami felt a flicker of relief that he hadn't looked, yet that meant nothing if Piccolo died. Kami didn't fear for himself as much as he feared that no one would be able to face the invading Saiyans without Piccolo. "Piccolo, you have to find a way," he prayed. The Shy Guy charged. "Don't hurt Uncle Piccolo," Son Gohan yelled, surging forward with a burst of power and slamming into the creature, sending it flying. But the Shy Guy barely flinched, doing a backflip and landing before charging again. "Kamehameha!" someone shouted. "Kikoho!" another voice boomed. 3 energy attacks, 2 blue and 1 yellow, plummeted from the sky and struck the Shy Guy at once, creating a massive explosion. Son Gohan stared, bewildered. "Who is that?" Piccolo recognized the arrivals instantly and sneered. In the next instant, 4 figures stood beside him and Gohan: Krillin, Yamcha, Tien Shinhan, and Chiatsu. "Sorry we're late," Yamcha said, catching his breath. "We sensed the battle key and came at top speed." Yamcha's face hardened as he took in the scene. "Is that thing a Saiyan?" he asked. Tien shook his head. "No, and whatever you do, don't look at its face. If anyone sees it, it will hunt them down no matter where they run. I saw its face. That's why I've been forced to keep fighting it." Piccolo struggled to his feet and warned, "What? You can't look at its face?" Krillin scowled. "If you think I'm joking, go ahead and look. It'll track you to the ends of the earth." Piccolo snapped, furious. The 4 looked at his injuries and stopped treating it like a joke. Their relationship with Piccolo was complicated, but they knew he wouldn't lie. Being beaten to that state was proof enough of the Shy Guy's terror. The monster howled and barreled toward them again. Quickly, everyone shut their eyes, refusing to look, and relied on Ki to sense the Shy Guy's position. Tien was first. "Ha!" He unleashed a powerful tri-beam. Chiatsu fired a Dodon ray. Krillin and Yamcha channeled their ki into a Kamehameha. Son Gohan unleashed his Masenko. All of them hit the Shy Guy at once, and the combined assault sent it flying a great distance. Chapter 51, Piccolo's Idea. "Hit the sun! Ah!" Their combined attack did nothing to stop Shy Guy. If anything, it only made him angrier. He had come to kill Piccolo for seeing his face. Why was he meeting such stiff resistance? Enraged, Shy Guy lunged with terrifying speed, far beyond the sound barrier, the pressure of his kinetic energy crushing the air around him. What the? How did his ki suddenly spike like that? Krillin's eyes widened. Sweat ran down his face. "Keep attacking," Yamcha shouted. The 5 of them continued to press Shy Guy, but no matter how many strikes they landed, they only managed to send him skidding farther away. Nothing inflicted any lasting damage. Piccolo, however, did not press the attack. He was recovering and thinking, trying to find a countermeasure. He scowled. The Saiyans could arrive at any moment. He didn't have time to be bogged down by this creature, and he had no desire to be killed. But the solution wouldn't come. He looked around in frustration and finally glanced up at the sun. "Wait, the sun," Piccolo said under his breath. Then he spoke aloud, decisive. "Everyone, fly up and push this thing toward the sun." They all rose into the Krillin gaped. "Push him into the sun?" "That's right," Piccolo said confidently. "The sun's energy far exceeds ours. I don't believe that thing can survive being dumped into it." Chiaotzu pointed anxiously behind them. "It's coming." Shy Guy streaked after them in a running posture in midair, moving as if the air itself were a track. Yamcha frowned. "What kind of bizarre flying is that?" "Now's not the time to worry about that." Piccolo snapped and accelerated. They reached far above Earth's atmosphere. Continuing any farther would hamper breathing and movement, so they stopped, and that briefly played into Shy Guy's hands. Seeing them coast to a halt, he lunged forward. In the next instant, Piccolo and the others were nowhere near their previous positions. They had moved behind Shy Guy in a flash and struck him full force, blasting him sunward. "Unleash everything. Fire a ki blast," Piccolo ordered. His body swelled with power, and with a forceful clap he unleashed an enormous ki blast. The others followed, pouring everything they had into the attack. The combined assault shoved Shy Guy relentlessly toward the sun. He tried to resist, but the pressure of their ki pinned him. He could only struggle. "Ah!" Shy Guy howled, and his power flared with his rage. He detonated the ki surrounding him in a violent burst, breaking the constraint. The explosion hurled him away, his muscles cracking and melting under the stress, and then rapidly regenerating. He prepared to resume the chase, but the closer he came to the sun, the more the blazing heat and the sun's gravity took hold. Scorching flames enveloped his body, and the sun's pull dragged him inward. Once Piccolo and the others confirmed Shy Guy's ki signature had entered the sun, they turned and dove back to Earth. Space this close was unbearable. There was no reason to linger. "Uncle Piccolo, is that enough to kill him?" Gohan asked uneasily. "Probably," Piccolo answered. "The sun's surface is over 6,000 degrees, and the core is in the millions. I don't think that monster can survive being burned and crushed in there." He still felt unsettled, though. He hated the thought of being wrong. "Where did that thing come from?" Tien asked. "Why have we never heard of it?" Piccolo didn't mention the SCP object. There was no point explaining now. "Anyway, it's good it's dealt with. We can use this method against the Saiyans, push them into the sun." Krillin shook his head. "That won't necessarily work. They're not stupid. They won't play along." Piccolo snorted. "This worked because that thing wasn't very bright. If it were an intelligent opponent, we wouldn't be chasing it all the way to the sun." From far above, the Saiyan spaceship was closing in on Earth. Vegeta, lounging arrogantly, sneered. "They told us these SCP things were dangerous. Ha! All they are is a chaotic rabble." Then his scouter started beeping loudly. Numbers began climbing on the display in horrified staccato. 20,000, 50,000, 100,000? How is that possible?" Vegeta exclaimed. Far off in the direction of the sun, his scouter had locked onto a power level that had instantaneously surged past 100,000, and it kept climbing. The source wasn't stationary. Something was moving toward Earth. The reading rocketed into the hundreds of thousands, and a chill slid down Vegeta's spine. He had thought the creature ended in the sun. Now it seemed they had only delayed whatever it was, or angered it. The monstrous sight of that power level closing in filled him with a fear he rarely felt, dread at an enemy that might not be so easy to throw away. Chapter 52. The Shock Across Worlds. Fortunately, it didn't appear here. How can this be? Vegeta stared at the scouter in disbelief. The power reading had already climbed into the hundreds of thousands and kept rising. That kind of terrifying strength was something he had only ever seen from Frieza. The thought of Frieza washed over him in a cold dread. A number over 500,000 made him freeze, unable to move closer. "Hey, Vegeta, did you see that?" Nappa's voice crackled through the scouter, trembling. "Something's coming to Earth from the sun. Its power is almost on par with Lord Frieza. What's happening?" Nappa sounded genuinely terrified. How could such a thing suddenly appear? Were they even supposed to go down to Earth now? The usually arrogant Vegeta felt a fear unlike anything he'd known. What kind of monster was this Shy Guy? Back on Earth, after Piccolo and the others landed, they all sensed Shy Guy's key. Their faces drained of color as they looked up at the sky. Heavens, what is that thing? Why isn't it dead? Krillin's teeth chattered. How is that possible? That's the sun. How could it not burn him to ashes? Yamcha's pupils trembled. None of them could accept what they were seeing. Then a shape plummeted from the sky like a meteor and slammed into the ground. Boom! The impact tore the land apart. A shockwave raced outward like a tornado, destroying everything and ripping the earth open. Under that blow, who knew how many people died instantly? For kilometers around, there was only ruin. Even Piccolo couldn't stay calm. A familiar, terrifying howl rang out, and inside the enormous crater, a charred, burning skeleton howled at the sky. The fire then vanished as muscle and flesh bulged from the bones, restoring Shy Guy to his original form. "Don't look at its face," Piccolo shouted immediately. Krillin and the others lowered their eyes. Piccolo, compelled, glanced up and locked eyes with Shy Guy, only to be met by pure, savage killing intent. A roar escaped Shy Guy, and he charged. Though his descent had been more frightening, his current speed was still terrifying, and his ki clearly exceeded Piccolo's and even Vegeta's. Everyone watching was stunned. Tony Stark, what the hell? The sun's surface is thousands of degrees, closer to 100,000, and the core's around 16 million degrees Celsius. How is this thing not incinerated? You can deny it all you like, but this is what we're seeing. Humanity is outmatched. The sun's core is 16 million degrees? That's crazy. Hotter than Ace's fire. If so, Akainu's magma wouldn't be able to finish it. Thank goodness it didn't appear in our world. We'd be finished. Sengoku could barely breathe. He had hoped to study or capture an SCP-like object for reward, but some of these things were better left undiscovered, or nobody would be left to claim the prize. Leo World, Feng Yuan dropped to the ground, hands shaking as he watched the screen. What kind of monster is this? Even the sun couldn't burn it. Ultraman would die if he got that close. Moroboshi Dan was breathing hard, face pale. Even if Ultraman fired a full-power beam, I don't think he'd be able to kill it. In the Naruto world, Naruto's earlier thrill at the Ninetales' power turned to dread. Next to him, Jiraiya panted, uneasy. We were confident with the sage's power, but this is different. If you look at it, you might not be able to get away. Tsunade, sweating, added, maybe Genjutsu? If we could trick it into thinking it's already killed someone. At Kamartage, Wong and the other sorcerers watched in stunned silence. It survives being thrown into the sun? How do you destroy something like that? Wong's voice trembled. They turned to their only other authority, the Ancient One. The Ancient One regarded the image gravely. I can think of one possible method, using the power of a demon god to eliminate it. If even that fails, the alternative is to erase its memories and seal it away. Hearing that brought some relief. With the Ancient One involved, there was a plan, however shaky. She herself didn't sound wholly certain. Something about Shy Guy felt like it might not yet have shown its limits. In Asgard, the warriors gaped. They had fought across the 9 realms and seen many horrors, but never this. Loki smirked and asked Thor, "You still think you can handle this?" Thor had no answer. He wouldn't dare approach the sun. How could he fight such a creature now? The normally proud god was suddenly grateful he had never met something like this. Frigga turned to Odin. "Father, could you handle it?" All eyes turned to the All-Father. Odin paused, then said carefully, "I'm not certain, but finding a way to control it might be possible." The room murmured uneasily. Control didn't sound like a proper solution. Odin, annoyed at the whispering, snapped and restored order. "Enough. It's not in our realms. We needn't speculate endlessly." He shifted topics sharply. "More pressingly, the frost giants infiltrated our treasury. We must investigate how they managed to sneak in." "Father, let me go into battle." Thor immediately volunteered, eager to vent the shock and anger the other threat had stirred in him. He wanted to take his frustration out on the frost giants. Across worlds, the same realization settled in. This was a monster unlike any they'd prepared for. Fortunately, if it could be called that, it had not shown up in many of their realities. But where it had appeared, its presence left nothing but ruin and a very long list of questions. Chapter 53, Piccolo's Last Resort, Seeking Death. No, Now is not the time. Odin cut off Thor's plea without hesitation. Why not? Our territory has been invaded. Why aren't we fighting back? Thor shouted, confused and indignant. What do you mean, not yet? We have to. The matter hasn't been clarified yet. Odin snapped. What's unclear? Thor shot back. A frost giant is in our eyes. You're not king yet, Odin said, his voice like iron. The king of Asgard is still me, and when I say no, it's no. The pressure in Odin's words made everyone go quiet. Thor, who had been brimming with righteous fury, found himself cut off and unable to argue. Odin snorted and turned his attention to the screens, curious to see how that alien from the Dragon Ball universe would handle such a creature. In the DC Situation Room, Bruce Wayne kept breathing hard, struggling to control himself. A monster that even the sun couldn't destroy. If it had come to his world, he didn't know what he would have done. If he calms down, maybe I can contain it by locking it in the mirror world, Bruce muttered. If not, there's no other option. Bound to the floor with bones broken, Bane glared at Batman and rasped, Have you gone mad? What are you muttering about? What are you afraid of? When Bane first saw Batman's new night-night attire, he thought it was a trick. Then he'd been instantly crushed. Furious, he spat insults. Batman snapped. Shut up, he growled, knocking Bane unconscious with a single brutal punch. Then he slipped into the mirror world. At the apartment where the others watched, Diana looked grave. The Shy Guy was worse than she had imagined. Even with blessings from the gods, being anywhere near the sun, or whatever force this thing commanded, was deadly. She was thankful it hadn't come to her world. What kind of demon is this? She murmured. Of everyone across the assembled worlds, only Doraemon seemed calm. Nobita had fainted in terror and was sleeping soundly. Doraemon carefully checked his gadgets. Maybe one of these can soothe it or teleport it away, he said, fingers already sorting through his pocketed tools. Back in the Dragon Ball universe, Krillin and the others crouched, heads bowed, paralyzed by fear. Piccolo's words had sapped their courage. They could feel the Shy Guy approaching. The aura it exuded crushed their will to move. Damn it, Teen said through clenched teeth. Are we all going to die before the Saiyans even arrive? There's only one way, Piccolo said. He stood, fixed his gaze on the advancing Shy Guy, and then, to everyone's astonishment, walked straight toward it. For a moment, people watching from other worlds held their breath, thinking Piccolo must have some trick. He stopped directly in front of the creature and closed his eyes. The Shy Guy didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, it slashed through Piccolo's chest, then slammed a claw down and snapped his neck. Piccolo's head flew off. Green blood spurted everywhere. The scene was horrific. No one expected Piccolo to have deliberately thrown his life away. Voices erupted around the viewing screens. Naruto demanded, What was he thinking? Why would he do that? Natasha replied grimly, Maybe he couldn't stop it any other way. He sacrificed himself to prevent it from continuing. Barton shook his head. Is that the only option? Bruce Wayne said quietly. Honestly, I think it might have been. If you can't stop it any other way. Zoro muttered, What a man, to accept death without hesitation. The Ancient One said, A noble sacrifice for Earth. Remarkable. Feng Yuan added, He showed such backbone. We'll remember you, Piccolo. Diana's voice was wistful. If not for an entire universe between us, I would like to have called him an ally. Sun Wukong, however, made a surprising remark that silenced the room. Dad? Sun Gohan blinked, confused. You've lived with Piccolo long enough, Gohan, Sun Wukong said. You know what he's capable of. Gohan's eyes widened as understanding dawned on him. He smiled despite the horror. At the battlefield, the Shy Guy continued its grisly work. It ripped Piccolo's body to pieces and ate every fragment until nothing remained. Krillin and the others watched in frozen disbelief, unable to tear their eyes away. Then, as suddenly as it had been violent, the Shy Guy covered its face and began sobbing. It had stopped killing and retreated into the shy behavior that gave it its name. Around the multiversal viewing rooms, a collective, nervous relief swept through the crowd. A voice cut through that relief on the screens. Seriously, you had to force me into that. Dying really hurts. Everyone froze. Piccolo? Weren't they watching his headless body? The camera shifted to show Piccolo's severed head, veins bulging, a thin spattering of blood at the chin, and then a new body sprouting out from the neck as if being regrown. I have powerful regenerative abilities, Piccolo announced. As long as my head isn't destroyed and I have enough energy, I can restore my body. Silence followed. The move explained everything Sun Wukong and Gohan had hinted at. Piccolo had done the unthinkable because he could survive it. He'd calculated that being torn apart and seeming to die was the only way to get close enough to the Shy Guy to stop it. With his body fully restored, Piccolo stalked behind the weeping Shy Guy. The creature, convinced he was dead, continued to cry and cover itself in shame and fear. Piccolo's eyes flashed. With a gesture, he produced a sealed iron cage from nowhere and slammed it around the Shy Guy, trapping it completely. Luffy, what kind of move was that? It conjured a cage out of thin air. Strange. Is that magic? Piccolo, I know a little conjuration magic. Ancient one. Fascinating. Powerful and practiced in magic, your world is full of surprises. Smong, as expected of Piccolo, he solved a major crisis. Piccolo snorted. That Shy Guy could still be tricked, but the next one won't be. He looked up at the sky as he spoke. Everyone was exhausted. If the Saiyans arrived now, they would be in trouble. A calm voice announced, SCP Object Shy Guy successfully contained, now distributing rewards. Piccolo fully recovered. Krillin, Tien Shinhan, Yamcha, Son Gohan, and Chiaotzu, potential awakened. When the voice faded, everyone felt it, an enormous surge of ki. Energy swelled through them and then spilled out, wild and difficult to control. What is this power? Why did my strength spike like that? It feels endless. Krillin, Tien, Yamcha, Gohan, and Chiaotzu stared at their bodies in shock as their ki ran like a fountain, powerful and unruly. They cried out, overwhelmed. Then Piccolo's voice cut through, and all felt his ki tower over theirs, vast and far greater than anything just before. What is this power? I feel like I'm 10 times stronger. Piccolo examined himself, stunned by the new, overflowing strength. What startled him most was an absence. The subtle link he had always shared with Kami felt severed. What's happening? Why has my connection to Piccolo been cut? Kami cried out. Once they had been one being, even after their separation, a faint bond had remained. Now it was gone. If either died, it would no longer affect the other. Fear gnawed at Kami. Piccolo had clearly become much stronger, and without that link as a failsafe, what could stop him if he turned hostile? Could Sun Wukong or anyone else in the universe be relied on? Across space, Vegeta stared at Earth with disbelief. His scouter was reading power levels he hadn't expected, tens of thousands. 12,000, 13,000, even 40,000. How can they be stronger than me? The Saiyan Prince's composure cracked. The reward from the strange barrier had lifted the human's strength to near his own, and one Namekian was already stronger than him. Pride burned. He could not accept it. Diana, fully recovered? Does that mean Piccolo was lacking before? Physically incomplete? Piccolo sniffed. I don't owe you an explanation, but Vegeta, do you still want to come? We're much stronger now. Vegeta scoffed, defiant. Humph, you think that scares me? I am the mightiest Saiyan, Piccolo smirked. Don't forget, I still have Shy Guy as a trump card. I could throw it at you anytime and let you see its face. Vegeta's face darkened. He'd seen Shy Guy's terror through his scouter. It was a fight he couldn't win. Damn it, Namekian. Wait. A cold smile creased Vegeta's lips as an idea formed. Do you think I'm stupid? If I don't look at it, it can't affect me, right? I've watched your fighting style. You gauge opponents by their power levels to predict movement. I can do the same without seeing it. Piccolo's expression tightened. If Vegeta chose not to open his eyes, Shy Guy might indeed be useless. Vegeta pressed his scouter. Nappa, you see the readings on Earth, right? I see them. They're all stronger than me, some up to 40,000. How do we fight that? Nappa's voice trembled with fear. He'd expected low power levels on this planet. This was beyond anything he could handle. Don't panic, Nappa. Are you really going to cower? Vegeta snapped, disgusted at his comrade's cowardice. Pride as a Saiyan prince would not let him back down. Don't forget the true strength of Saiyans. He smiled with feral confidence. If we transform into great apes, our power multiplies tenfold. Then we'll have nothing to fear. Nappa brightened instantly. Those Earthlings will all die. Vegeta clenched his fists, his expression hardening into a savage grin. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Xie Yun felt the same announcement in his own ears. SCP Object Shy Guy successfully contained. Congratulations to Xie Yun for acquiring a reward. Obtained. Shy Guy's immortality. No matter what injury is suffered, even if cast into the sun, the host will not die. All wounds will immediately regenerate. The change was immediate. Xie Yun's body tingled with new possibilities. Shy Guy's immortality. He stood up and tested it without hesitation. Summoning a carnivorous vine, he tore through his own arm, ripping out a chunk of flesh. The pain was intense. He screamed. Then, as suddenly as it began, the pain vanished. The flesh knitted back together as if nothing had happened. This ability is incredible, he breathed. Even thrown into the sun, I can't die. And this isn't even the limit. An alert chimed, adding a caveat. Note, if the host's bones are shattered, they cannot regenerate and will die permanently. The warning froze Xie Yun. He remembered a report from another SCP universe. A doctor had snapped Shy Guy's neck to break its bones and then finished it off with a serum. If bones are the weak point, immortality has its limits. He swallowed hard. I hope SILD never releases a Shy Guy, he muttered, uneasily aware of how dangerous such a thing could be in the wrong hands. Chapter 55. Howard's Relics. Roots Surveillance. Achoo! Nick Fury sneezed so loudly it made Tony Stark jump. Natasha was administering an injection to slow the palladium poisoning in Tony's chest, and Tony's annoyance showed as soon as the interruption came. Hey, what's wrong with you? Are you sick? Go see a doctor, he snapped. He had been in the middle of chatting up a passing agent, and the moment was ruined. Sorry, Fury said blandly. Must be someone bad-mouthing me. He glanced at Tony. Could it be you? You're overthinking things. I always say it to your face, Fury added when Tony protested. Tony lowered his eyes to his arm. The veins beneath his skin had a sickly, drained look, another reminder that the palladium inside him was poisoning him, only being delayed by the injections. This is only buying time, Tony said. We need a real cure. I know that, Natasha replied. I've tested so many elements. None can replace it. Fury reached into his coat and tossed a small box toward Tony. These are your father's relics. He once discovered something entirely new. It might help you, but you'll have to work it out for yourself. It could also be nothing. With those cryptic words, Fury turned away to supervise the agents. Tony stared at the box, baffled, the weight of a dozen possibilities crowding his mind. He hesitated over whether to open it. Jiraiya and his companions were on their way back to Konoha. During a rest stop, Jiraiya continued training Naruto. So tired! Naruto collapsed, panting. Channeling even a fraction of the Ninetales' power was overwhelming. He almost passed out. Inside him, the Ninetales roared in fury. My power isn't so easy to take. Why can you use my chakra without asking? Relax, Naruto muttered aloud despite the beast's protests. Since it's like this, we might as well try to cooperate. Cooperate my foot, the Ninetales growled. Jiraiya watched, amused, then offered some blunt advice. Your control's weak. Start with basics, strengthen your stamina and carrying capacity. Carry my pack for a while, increase your load. You're just trying to slack off, Naruto shot back. Idiot, I'm training you, Jiraiya retorted. I think you're just being lazy, Naruto fired. How dare you question your master's painstaking efforts? Jiraiya snapped. Tsunade and Shizune observed the bickering from the sidelines, Tsunade suppressing an eye roll at the pair. Then Tsunade's gaze shifted toward the trees behind them, and her expression hardened. A cold, dangerous intent flared from her, and the nearby bushes shivered. What is it? Jiraiya asked, stretching as he walked over. Naruto's retort was cut short, as Jiraiya's playful punch sent him sprawling to the ground. Nothing much, Tsunade said. It's just some people keeping too close for comfort. Probably Danzo's men, she added. That faction always wants shadows of power. I want you to take a position of authority. Once you agree, with the prestige of the Senju behind you, no one will dare oppose it. It's something Danzo won't like. Jiraiya smirked into the trees. Heh, I could not care less what that old schemer thinks. If he moves against me, he'll regret it. Tsunade's eyes were sharp. But I'm impressed you detected those people hiding in the bushes. Root operatives are trained to be invisible. Sometimes even I can't sense them. You were drinking the whole time and still noticed first. Are you using observation haki? Jiraiya's face lit up. Yeah, like the voice said, it senses the presence and movement of living things. There's more room to grow. If I could combine haki with chakra, imagine what that could do. Tsunade's tone held a fierce curiosity. An ability from another world intrigued her. If Haki and chakra could be fused, the implications for future threats were staggering. She would have to study it. But I'm more worried about Orochimaru, she said quietly. Jiraiya's expression darkened. The sea virus turning people into monsters. That man will go mad with power. He clenched his fists. If Orochimaru interfered again, Jiraiya promised himself he would end him. Deep in Orochimaru's secret base, a strange, silken cocoon lay on the floor. Kabuto stood guard nearby. The cocoon cracked with a sound like breaking porcelain and burst open, revealing a hulking, grotesque form. Tentacles writhed from its back, eyes studded its flesh, and its hands and feet were taloned like a dinosaur's. Only the face remained recognizably human. Orochimaru's face twisted into a smile. Orochimaru-sama, how do you feel? Kabuto asked, anxious. I feel better than ever, Orochimaru purred, inspecting the alien flesh. It seems I have evolved into an entirely new state. My human skin is gone. Kabuto's concern wasn't for appearances. But can you perform hand signs in this form? Orochimaru laughed softly, and then, with a thought, the appendages and extra eyes folded back into his body until he stood as his familiar, lithe self. I can shift at will between this monstrous form and my human body. In human form, I can use ninjutsu without hindrance. He flexed his arms, satisfaction in his voice. The sea virus has amplified my body and my mind. My chakra reserve is exponentially greater than before. If I face the third shadow again, I can kill him instantly. Fanatical light gleamed in Orochimaru's eyes. Where he had once pursued purely intellectual experiments in ninjutsu, now the virus opened new frontiers. He wanted to know its boundaries and what marvels would follow when its power fused with jutsu. Kabuto, what about the replicas you made, from my blood and your research? Orochimaru asked. He had used his own blood and held back quantities of the sea virus in order to attempt mass production. Kabuto answered quickly. We have results. It shows powerful variability, but whether it's controllable and whether the human body can tolerate it is still uncertain. Then we'll test it, Kabuto added with a cold smile. Don't we have plenty of guinea pigs here? Orochimaru sneered. He had an endless supply of test subjects. Running out was the least of his worries. He could already feel the power of the sea virus and the possibilities it opened up. How many variations could he study? By the way, my lord, Kabuto asked, curious, what about Sasuke? Our original plan was to take over his body. Do we still need to? Orochimaru's smile widened. Of course, I'm still very interested in his Sharingan. He glanced at his own body, thoughts running in dark circles. Besides, the sea virus mutates differently in each person. I'm very curious how someone like Sasuke, his bloodline limit, his hatred for Itachi, would react. If the virus makes him stronger than me, then he'd be worth taking over. There was a fanatic glint in his voice and a terrifying smile curled his lips. Doraemon World. After Nobita received the first-year Hogwarts curriculum, he dived straight into study, eager to become a wizard. It turned out to be much harder than he expected. Wingardium Leviosa. Nobita waved his wand at a book and intoned the charm, but nothing happened. No, Nobita. According to the notes, your pronunciation needs varying emphasis, and you can't wave the wand too hard. Doraemon read carefully from the spell textbook. The handwriting in the margins was neat, the explanations precise, the work of a top student. And with handwriting like that, Doraemon thought, the student must be a girl. Ah, I'm not practicing anymore. Why does magic require training? Can't one spell just work? Nobita yanked at his hair in frustration. He'd imagined himself showing off after learning a spell, but he was stuck at the most basic level. He'd thought waving a wand and chanting would be easy. He hadn't expected it to be this difficult. It was crushing for someone who never liked studying. Idiot, Doraemon sighed. This requires hard practice. If you don't work, you'll never learn magic. Doraemon, use a gadget to help me learn instantly. Nobita begged. No, my gadgets can't help with this. I don't have anything that teaches magic in one go. Doraemon refused. Besides, this is a good chance for you to train. If you don't learn to rely on yourself, you'll never achieve anything. Doraemon launched into a lecture of grand principles. Nobita barely listened and started flipping through other books. What are you looking at now? Doraemon asked suspiciously. This potions book. You don't need spells for potions. Just mix ingredients. That's perfect for me. Nobita beamed, holding the book up. Doraemon's expression turned helpless. Nobita, our world doesn't have the ingredients listed in that book. Eh? Nobita froze, then shouted when a voice came from downstairs. Nobita, what are you making so much noise about? Have you finished your homework? Nobita went stiff. He'd completely forgotten his homework. He was doomed. Doraemon. Leo World after Gantras appeared, Moriboshi Dan was immediately called in and questioned about its origin. He improvised a story, claiming Gantras had been left on Earth by old alien friends, and did his best to convince the MAC officials. They tentatively accepted his explanation and wanted to take Gantras for research. The snag was only Moriboshi Dan could operate Gantras's controller, and no one else could decipher or use it. Research would therefore require his involvement, and he had to promise to use it only against monsters and aliens. Having placated the officials, Moriboshi Dan went to find Feng Yuan. Feng was training Kaioken alone and lay exhausted on the ground. "How's your Kaioken training going?" Moriboshi Dan asked. "The side effects are too strong. I can't handle double power," Feng Yuan panted. "Then stick with basic training. Your physical fitness determines Leo's strength. You have to train more." At the mention of training, Moriboshi Dan's eyes lit up with an eerie glow that made the tired Feng Yuan shiver. "Now, let's move on to the next SCP object prediction." A voice from the small floating screen announced. Everyone paused to look. The screen was uncanny. It followed them wherever they went, visible only to them, making it easy to check live updates while doing other things. Red Sea World, the screen read, and then a red, disc-like object appeared. If this had been any earlier day, the team might have shrugged off a simple disc. But after seeing the terrifying effects of the 3D glasses incident, no one underestimated anything that looked innocuous. This object was found on a red shore, next to a corpse, the report said. We don't know the relationship between the corpse and the object. At first, we thought it was an ordinary disc, but when it moved, we realized it wasn't simple. The screen showed a scene, the disc rolling by itself, closing in until it stuck to a mirror and stopped. The disc actively seeks mirrors, or anything that reflects clearly. If it doesn't find a reflective surface nearby, it will keep moving faster and farther away. The image shifted to a researcher tossing the red disc across a field. The disc rolled, gaining speed in one direction until it became almost a blur. It tore through grass, highways, and mountains, and only stopped when it found a populated area and adhered to a mirror. In its path, it caused extensive destruction, piercing trees and rocks. Evidently, it would not stop until it found a reflective surface. Everyone in the room watched in stunned silence, unsure what the disc sought or why it hunted mirrors. When the red disc attaches to a mirror, the reflected image changes, appearing not to belong to our world. We also performed experiments where different people held the disc. The disc's color changed depending on who touched it. Red, yellow, blue, green, purple, those are the 5 variants of this disc. The presenter tapped the slide and the sentence hung in the conference room. The color of the disc, he explained, was not random. It reflected the holder's psychological state and emotions. For a long time, the researchers had no idea what the colors meant or why the mirror's image changed when the disc contacted it. Then an accident answered the question. One day, the presenter continued, 2 researchers were arguing in the lab about who would pay for lunch. The argument grew heated and one shoved the other. The man who was pushed happened to be handling one of these discs. He stumbled, the disc struck the mirror, and he passed through it. Amazing as it sounds, the disc is a portal device, a key. Anyone who presses a disc to the mirror can enter another world. Further tests showed something stranger. The same mirror with different colored discs led to different places. Not necessarily different worlds, but different arrival points. We don't know why. Because of that, the Containment Society assembled a mobile task force and sent people through to investigate. At those words, conversation dropped to a hush. Another artifact that opened gateways to other worlds. This meeting had suddenly become more serious. Fury leaned forward. So the disc can open a portal? Like 3D glasses? Sengoku frowned. Are there monsters on the other side? Can they come through the mirror? We'll know when we see the footage, Tsunade said flatly. The screen shifted to grainy body cam images. The first shots showed a desolate landscape, ruins as far as the eye could see. cities broken and half buried. It looked like the aftermath of a cataclysmic war fought on an immense scale. That alone was worrying. What terrified the team, though, were the inhabitants. The camera panned up and cut to a cluster of enormous creatures. They were green-skinned and grotesque, not remotely humanoid. 50 to 100 meters tall, they had massive torsos and a set of impossibly long arms that seemed to be their only means of support. Below the waist, there was nothing, no legs, only the suggestion that the arms bore the whole weight. Close-ups showed grotesque faces and armored scales. When we first encountered them, the narrator in the recording said, "We thought their size and slow gait would be in our favor. Because of their height, they couldn't spot people at ground level easily. Their movement seemed ponderous. We told ourselves we could stay hidden and, if discovered, retreat. That turned out to be a fatal assumption." The footage switched to the mobile task force advancing through a ruined boulevard. Two of the giants stood on either side like immovable sentinels, their attention elsewhere. The people moved carefully, every footstep measured. A can rolled. A dull clang echoed in the hollow city. "Hey," someone hissed. Silence broke with the sharpness of the noise. The team tensed, fingers on triggers. "Keep quiet," a squad leader snapped. Then the ground shuddered. The giant that had been passing suddenly turned its massive torso and loomed over them. It had noticed the sound. "Retreat, back to the mirror," shouted the captain. Men ran, breathless, toward the glimmering surface that was their only exit. They expected chase would be slow, predictable. What followed was not. The creature roared, a deep, bone-shuddering sound, and sound waves cracked plaster and sent glass raining down. In moments it moved with impossible speed. The camera registered a blur, an afterimage of a hulking mass charging. The monsters did not lumber forward so much as vanish and reappear yards ahead, smashing through buildings as if they were paper. One of them slammed a fist down where the team had been moments before. The impact ripped a trench in the street. Men who had been running were shredded into spray. Bodies and the camera's trembling view merged into a chaos of blood and rubble. "Open fire," someone screamed, and the remaining soldiers unleashed everything they had. Automatic fire, grenades, launcher rounds. Bullets pinged off armored scales and spat sparks. Grenades uprooted concrete, but the monsters barely slowed. The narrator's voice was taut with disbelief. Our munitions had no real effect beyond knocking off scales. Then more alarms. Distant thunder, not of weather but of collapsing buildings. The sound drew the other giants. Where silence had protected the team, the commotion became a beacon. From the wreckage around them, more of the massive beings emerged, each covering ground in bursts of speed that belied their sizes. They roared as they came, and the city itself seemed to rally to the monsters' steps. Structures pancaked underfoot, streets ruptured. Surrounded, outgunned, and trapped between collapsing architecture and a mirror that was now a few dozen terrified meters away, the team had no way out. The last shots the feed relayed were frantic. Shouts, the thud of a grenade, a camera kicked into the mud as a great shadow fell across it. Even as the signal faltered, the people back home received the raw, horrifying lesson. This footage, the presenter concluded, was broadcast in real time until the very end. The task force was lost. We learned two things. The discs are doors to other places, and those places can harbor threats far beyond our imaginings. Use of the discs must be treated with extreme caution. The room held the silence of people who had just watched a warning unfold. The recorder clicked to a stop, but the images lingered. Green skin, oversized arms, the brief, catastrophic speed of an impossible predator. Proof that other worlds were not just different, but deadly. Chapter 58. Sacrifice to continue exploring. When the images filled the screen, many faces changed to expressions of shock. Tony Stark muttered, "What are those things? They're enormous and fast, and they move on their hands. This makes no scientific sense." Vegeta snorted, "What's so surprising? Size and speed are marks of true strength. Shrinking yourself to slow down is just foolish." Odin nodded. "I agree. I've encountered similar things." Natasha frowned. "But the worst part is this world itself. Why is it crawling with monsters everywhere?" Bruce Wayne asked quietly, "Could this be an alien invasion? Were all the people in that world wiped out by these creatures?" Fury answered, "Very likely. Otherwise, how else do you explain the state of that world?" Feng Yuan clenched his fists. "Damn it. What kind of creatures are these, launching an invasion like this? Nami's eyes widened. If people from that world can cross into the Containment Society's world through mirrors, couldn't the creatures come through too? Jiraiya shook his head. That seems impossible. The size difference is enormous. How could they fit through? While they argued, the footage continued. A narrator explained, after the Containment Society's leadership learned about conditions in this world, they launched targeted research. Some argued that exploration should stop, while others insisted it must continue so that if a similar crisis ever threatened their own world, they would know how to respond. Ultimately, the leadership decided to keep sending mobile task forces to investigate. They've designated this place the Red Sea World. Nobita gasped. No way, they'll still send people in? Aren't they afraid of getting killed? Fury's voice was cool. Kid, you don't get it. The more dangerous something is, the more reason you have to study it. If a catastrophe strikes your own world and you have no knowledge of how to handle it, that's far worse. Sengoku agreed. Exactly. If it were up to me, I'd dispatch the Navy to chart unknown territory. Nobita hesitated. But what if they die? Sengoku's reply was blunt. Sacrifice is unavoidable. We'll remember them. They're heroes who fought for peace. The thought hit Nobita hard. He was a child, and suddenly confronting the cold calculus of adults left him stunned and silent. The others fell quiet too. They knew it was normal for a child to take time to accept such harsh realities. Doraemon put a comforting paw on Nobita's shoulder and said softly, Some things are like that, Nobita. Someone has to make the sacrifices. Is there any way to prevent them from having to sacrifice themselves? Nobita asked. Doraemon glanced at the screen and then at Nobita. If it were him, he thought, he'd use gadgets to explore. No lives would have to be risked. But on the screen, another mobile task force team was entering the Red Sea world. The entry point brought an unexpected detail into focus. Teams stepping through discs of different colors emerged in different places: hills, coastlines, cities, countryside. If not for the monsters everywhere, researchers might have concluded different disc colors led to different worlds. No one understood what the colors meant. It was still one world. So why did different colored discs deposit them in different locations? Nobody had an answer. One constant remained. The mobile task force pressed its exploration. Having learned from earlier mistakes, this team moved with extreme caution. All their weapons had silencers, their gear used sound-insulating materials, and they wore tactical camouflage, trying with everything they had not to alert the terrible creatures. It worked for a while. They slipped past the giants and advanced a long distance. The landscape was unchanging and oppressive. Nobody could say if walking farther would lead to anything, or whether going too far might strand them and make return impossible. But they had orders. They had to move forward. At last, they found a complete structure, a tall tower that gave off a technological air. The sight of it stirred the exhausted task force. A standing building might hold useful information. The only problem, dozens of the giant creatures clustered around its base. Passing beneath their steps would be a suicide attempt. One false move, and they'd be discovered and torn apart. The team froze, unwilling to risk it. Keep moving. We must find out what's inside, came the order over their radios from high command. Hearing the command left them nowhere to hide. They took a breath and began to examine possible routes through the monsters toward the tower. Back at the viewing room, outrage flared. Naruto exploded. What kind of joke is this? Who gave that order? Do they have any idea what the situation is? Kizaru drawled, I'm with you. That's reckless. Diana said sharply, no matter how curious you are, you can't be that impulsive. There has to be a plan. Fury snapped back. Easy for you to say. How would you plan it? Use bait to lure them away? With those monsters' speed, that would just kill more people. Tony Stark frowned. You agree with that? You don't strike me as someone who'd give such unreasonable orders. Barton nodded. Fury bristled. Barton, watch it. I've never been reckless. Akainu interjected coldly. Humph. How can you uphold justice if you won't sacrifice when it's necessary? Naruto shouted, sacrificing your subordinates on a whim. What kind of justice is that? Akainu barked. Shut up. Justice is inherently ruthless. Moroboshi Dan scoffed. Ruthless justice? That's nonsense. Akainu snarled. What did you say? Sengoku raised a hand. Enough. Akainu, stop arguing. On a screen in Leo World, Moroboshi Dan watched with growing displeasure. How could Akainu talk like that? Using subordinates as expendable sacrifices, what kind of leader was that? He bristled and said indignantly, treating subordinates as sacrifices, what sort of leader does that? Feng Yuan, standing nearby, had a strange expression on his face after hearing Dan's words. Feng Yuan couldn't help scowling as he looked Moroboshi Dan up and down. In his experience, the captain often gave bizarre orders that got teammates killed or otherwise tormented them. Did a man like that really have the right to lecture anyone on competence? Moroboshi Dan felt the stare and snapped his head around, but Feng Yuan had already withdrawn his gaze and gone back to doing push-ups. While the others argued, the mobile task force moved. They decided one person would draw the monster's attention, run into a distant building, and fire a sniper rifle. The rifle wouldn't hurt them. The point was to lure the creatures away. Roar! 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 As planned, it worked. The monsters noticed the distant figure and charged at terrifying speed, smashing through buildings and pounding the ground, their enormous bodies bearing down on the sniper's position. The man's face was white with fear, but he kept firing, drawing as many monsters as possible. The rest of the team used the diversion to sprint for the tall tower. Boom! The sniper's building exploded and collapsed. The monsters dragged him out, tore him apart, and shoveled the pieces into their maws as if he were nothing. After finishing him, the creatures turned and saw the mobile task force making for the tower. Roar! 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 The sight of unfamiliar humans enraged them. They bellowed and swung their massive limbs, charging. Move! Hurry up! The team ran flat out. They had to get inside the tower. Roar! 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 In an instant, the monsters were upon them, circling and hunting. Blood sprayed everywhere. It looked like everyone had been slaughtered. Then the camera cut to a single figure, a task force member breathing hard, lying behind a reinforced door in the tower. Only he had made it inside. His designation was C-123. He hauled himself up, peered through a window, and saw the creatures outside now wandering slowly, apparently unaware someone had entered the tower. He let out a long, shaky breath. Salute to the fallen, he said to no one. C-123 didn't give in to grief or loneliness. He stepped into a crisp military posture at the door, then turned and pressed on. He still had a mission: find out exactly what had happened in this world. The tower was tall with many rooms, but at least there were no traps or mechanisms. He searched floor by floor and found nothing until he reached what looked like a control room. Its computer was still running. C-123 booted it up and began reading. What he found made him radio his report immediately. The words "My World" indicate this author is an agent of the Containment Society from another parallel universe. Keep reading. This could be critical. He scrolled down and read a long entry. My name is an agent of the Containment Society. My world is in 1972. C-123 felt a chill and read on. In this world, I assume conditions were similar to my own, but from what I've seen, the creatures here perished around 1954. I used that strange disk to travel to places in this world. I started at this center and ended at that center. I witnessed the barren landscapes. I also tried to escape the unclean ones. They pursue anything they can sense. I don't understand exactly how they hunt, but I have some understanding of what they are. About 350 years ago, this world underwent a technological explosion that our world never experienced. The source of it seems to have been his arrival, a godlike entity of unknown origin. He declared this world unclean and full of sin, and said the only way to purify original sin was to purify the sinners. After a war, whoever survived would be pure. Over the next decade, the science of all civilizations advanced dramatically, preparing for that war. Then he vanished. The war was launched regardless, instigated by the Holy United States, similar to the US in our world. Records from this period are sparse. Books on the subject are forbidden here. By tracking a series of damaged communication systems, I located a cache of historical material. It seems the basic weapon used in the war for his love was actually humans exposed to a liquid compound called his holy tears. I found that compound in many abandoned medical facilities. His holy tears are said to purify the sins of the unclean ones and make them revere God. At least, that's what the records claim. The accounts of the war are vague, mostly claiming that the saints chosen by him crossed the lands of sin, bringing sinners before their sins. Those who resisted his love were purified by his light. But something went wrong, something no one could fix. The unclean ones are giant, semi-humanoid creatures that survive by devouring any living thing. I found a scientific report written by someone who stumbled into this place by accident. These creatures are the result of severe genetic mutation caused by exposure to highly concentrated tears of God. There are terms like quantum recombination that I don't fully understand, but the conclusion is clear. They were once human, like us. They cannot be controlled, though they can be contained. They are attracted to the tears of God, so centers were established at the intersections of regions, where a person would remain with the purest tears to keep the unclean ones confined to an area called the wasted land. Later, everything went wrong. I don't know exactly why, but the collapse was total. Power grids, cities, civilization, humanity itself turned to rubble, and the unclean ones that now shuffled across the land became the new rulers of the earth, aimless and without purpose. If you can stand the stench, you can stand next to an unclean one and it will merely brush past you. But if it notices you, you're dead. They can move like lightning when they want to, though most of the time they crawl along as slowly as snails. Sometimes they seem to chase things for no reason, and other times they hunt. I think there are people hidden in this facility, people, or what's left of them. I can hear voices and begging from beneath this floor. But before I explored any deeper, I sealed the entrance. I threw the disc back into the mirror I had come through and shut it. We can't let those things into our world, and we shouldn't meddle. I don't think we are clever enough to understand it all. I don't think the unclean ones die. They are effectively immortal, but they don't want immortality. They want to die. I hadn't noticed until then, but the equipment in this room was showing me things. The words on the screen were all pleas for help. I remember touching the tear of God, just touching it, smelling it, tasting that sourness. We were stupid in our investigation. I didn't eat it. I only touched it, tasted its acidity. Ha ha ha. Those high priests are still alive. They had technology like something out of a comic, technology gifted to them by that thing. Some records on this machine mentioned space travel, but they didn't go far, only far enough to watch the world collapse, then wait to return and take control. But if they all left, who is with me in this building? I saw faces, people's faces, the faces of unclean ones, appearing in the photos printed by the machine, in the same rooms as me, watching me. I guess these machines see what we cannot. They look neither sad nor happy, merely curious. They want to know why. Why them? Why this happened? I don't know. I really don't know. When I touched the tear, it showed me things the records did not. The unclean ones remember everything. Everyone they touch becomes part of them. Inside they are safe. For us, they are dead. Their thoughts, their feelings, all their fears are eternal within them. I'm tempted to join them, but there's too much left to do. They want me to find him and kill him. There was no real war. It was all him, he, the priests, the one called it. It came from the rift between time and space, between worlds, light and dark. It should never have entered this world, but they named it God. They worshipped it, tasted it, touched it, lived with it, and became its servants. They did its will, and it is still here. What it brought with it is here. That disc was brought by it. It forced its way in and built the gate. I don't know if the people realized, but it belonged to the thing. It used the disc to travel between regions and worlds. So I destroyed it. Ha! I threw away its fragments and crawled through the breach. The gates to those worlds closed, just like ours. I can't go home, so what else can I do? It emerged from the stone, the tear itself, and somehow it knew where the priests were, but couldn't touch them. But if you hide the stone, you trap yourself inside too. I found it. You son of a bitch, I found you. Bang, bang, haha, I hit it with my fists and with a gun. It fell, but it will get up, soon. I'm sorry, I've done all I can. Now let me sleep. Please, let me sleep. The document ends there. C123's face was pale as he read. The amount of information was overwhelming. The screen went blank. The introduction finished. For a long moment, no one in the room reacted. Luffy broke the silence. Can someone tell me what's going on? What does all that mean? Tony Stark rubbed his temple. Wait, I'm still processing. There's too much here. It's terrifying. Robin spoke quietly. I've sorted through it. If I'm right, those giant monsters, the unclean ones, were once human, mutated by a substance called the Tear of God. The natives of that world were deceived. Bruce Wayne nodded. Exactly. The he and the priests manipulated the people. The so-called war was engineered by them so humanity would destroy itself, leaving the world in ruins for them to control without spilling their own blood. Those giant creatures were probably meant to be his army. Naruto frowned. Is it really that easy to start a war? Jiraiya chuckled ruefully. On that point, I can speak from experience. Provoking a war is never difficult to describe. If resources are scarce or someone wants more, they'll find reasons to prey on the weak. The weak then beg protection from the strong, and the cycle escalates. It repeats and grows until it consumes everything. Diana added, as long as human greed exists, war will always be easy to incite. Moriboshi Dan slammed a fist into his palm. That so-called he exploited human weaknesses, deceived them, stirred up conflict, and turned people into those monsters. Nobita looked baffled. But what good is a world full of monsters and ruins? Odin's expression was cold. That depends on what he is. Some beings simply delight in ruling a world of ruin and monsters. I've seen similar forces across the universe. Nobita made a helpless noise. Ah! Sengoku's voice was sharp. Damn it. If the people of that world had been wiser, they might not have fallen for it. Piccolo shook his head. Not necessarily. Human fragility is real. Many can be provoked by only a few words. Tony interjected, returning to the machine's records. The key was the technological leap. Some countries gained a huge advantage and couldn't resist flaunting it. It's like nuclear weapons. If one nation has an overwhelmingly powerful weapon, it might strike first, and others will race to build something stronger to defend themselves. That kind of escalation destroys restraint. The room sat in uneasy silence, the weight of the document's truth hanging over them all.